All right, we're gonna get ready to. Got this? Oh, there it goes.
One sec till I get to YouTube.
Good evening, everyone. It's time to call this meeting to order at 7:03. And we have a land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement. The board has this land acknowledgement and anti-racism statements, which are posted on our website, suddenvalley.com. Now for roll call, we have AJ Tischlitter is excused. And we've got a couple of people still may check in. Looks like maybe Brian and Keith. Brian's on his way. So that's roll call. Now it's adoption of agenda. I move that we adopt the agenda.
Second.
Move to amend the agenda.
You'd like to amend the agenda?
Yes, we need to add member comments after item 3 announcements. It was left off of the agenda.
Yeah. So we moved to amend the agenda to add owner comments following announcements, making owner comments, agenda item 4. And moving them all down to the next position after that. So is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Passes unanimous. Next item. So this is the right announcements. We're going there first without the consent agenda. Next item is consent agenda. Does anyone have any changes to suggest to the minutes? No, and seeing none, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? It passes. And now we are up to announcements. Does anyone have an announcement? Linda?
Last meeting, I said that I had heard that the Whatcom County Library the Friends had moved their jazz event. And I have confirmation it is, I saw it on Facebook, so that's why I said I wasn't for sure. But it has been moved to Glen Haven. It's still going to happen on July 15th from 2 to 3 p.m. It's free event, but you have to request tickets for them. And if you go to the Whatcom County Library site, you can register, but there's evidently limited seating. So just so if you're interested in attending and supporting the library, please do so.
Thank you. Joanne?
I am pleased to announce that SVCA finalized an agreement with the Whatcom Family YMCA this past week for the provision of swim lessons at Sudden Valley during the 2023 season. There'll be 2 swim lesson sessions. The first is from July 10th through August 2nd, and the second is August 7th through August 30th. Each session will include 8 30-minute lessons for each participant. The lessons will take place on Mondays and Wednesdays between 9:30 and noon in the main pool. During lesson time, 3 lap lanes will remain open for the use of members holding non-members. Registration will be managed by the Y. And both members and non-members of the association will be allowed to register for lessons. But students who are not members of the association will need to purchase a monthly pool pass from SVCA. I believe that the program will deliver a real value to the community. Children will be able to conveniently take swimming lessons, improving their safety in the water. And the association will collect some additional revenue to help offset the high cost of maintaining the pools. We're looking forward to partnering with the Y this swim season, and we will be announcing in the upcoming views, and we'll send out e-blasts as well when we know that the Y's website is accepting registrations. Because remember, they'll be handling all of that. So we'll let the community know when it's ready to time to register. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne.
Sam. There are still openings for committee members needed on the ACC, Long Range Planning, Document Review, and the Finance Committee, as far as I know.
Comment, not document review.
Okay, it's in the view that way. All right, and it says apply at www.sunvalley.com, and it's under volunteers, or you can get an application at the Welcome Center.
Thanks, Michael. Hey, I just want to make note that Brian is in attendance via Zoom.
Thank you.
Director Coe.
Okay, anybody else have any? Thank you, Michael, for that. Anybody else have any announcements? Now it's time for property owner comments. Please step up to the mic, and it's not very busy right now there. And no one is. Oh, member comment. Here comes Michael.
Pardon me?
You're gonna do a member comment.
Michael Wadsworth, 5 Western Lane. Is it on, that working?
Have to get right up.
Right up,
There
okay,
you go.
huh, that feels weird. Michael Wadsworth, 5 Western Lane. I would like to encourage the board to get back to looking at the emergency preparedness information and packet. I don't think we have a plan. I don't think people know what's going on, and it's something that really needs to happen. And we've seen it in other communities, the disaster that has happened, and it's really important. And I think we're kind of kicking the can down the road because we're doing a lot of other stuff, which is good. I see a lot of good things happening, but I do believe that that is an important topic that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. All right, we checked online. There's no one there, and we have no one else at the podium. We're going to move on to our next item on agenda is financial reports, and that is Joel. Good evening, Joel.
Well.
Is Joel talking right now? I can't hear him.
No, we're still waiting. Brian.
Voice from above.
I'm gonna put my headphones in.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I'm going to be going over the February 2023 financial statements. Last month we did January, so now we're up to February. And I'll just quickly run through this. What you're looking at here is obviously the balance sheet that I always start off with, and which is always the first page of the financial statements, whether in the board packet or if you get it from online from the Finance Committee website link. I usually like with the balance sheet, I'll point out any sort of real notable line items. One good thing is there really is no notable huge change from February to, so it's comparing February 2028, this column to the second column, which is December 31, 2022. So it's always going to look back at the year end column, in this case for 2022, since we're into 2023. And there's no, I mean, of course, I've already addressed like a lot of these, any sort of notable change last month, and there's really nothing new to add to February. So I'll just go ahead and skip on into the income statement, which is probably the most interesting thing to look at. Okay, so this income statement, so what you're looking at is the income statement, of course, and I point this out pretty much every month, but this income statement is the consolidated income statement. It's all departments put together. Then the next couple of pages, I'll show you where they'll be split out. But anyways, you're looking at the entire organization right here. And then obviously you have the operations column, which is the most interesting column because that's what is usually, you know, during the budgeting process, that's the thing that people are really concentrated on the most during budgeting. Then the capital column, which is the last column. This is the year to date here. There's month to date as well, but we'll just go ahead and focus on the year to date. We're only 2 months anyways into this year for the financial statements. So the bottom line is the net income, operating net income for Sudden Valley is $188,376. We're, you know, close to $50,000 above or under budget or to the good, $50,000 surplus over what we were anticipating have at the end of February. So that's good. In terms of like last month, or not last month, but last year, for comparison purposes, February 2022, we had net income, operating net income. So this is basically, this number right here is what you're looking at in terms of during the budget, when we budget for operations, what were the bottom line, so to speak. Once you start dropping below this, you're getting into UDR stuff, which doesn't affect the operating budget. But so in terms of comparison speaking, at the end of February 2022 year to date, 2 month ending, we had 85,817. So we have 188,376 at the end of February 2023. We were about $3,400 better than budget last year at the end of February. So we're better than budget by about 49,500 this year, which is good. Now, we budgeted for the year to have a 95% collection rate. So we had a 93.3% collection rate through February 2023. So for the first 2 months, 93.3%, but we always start off the year, versus I talked about last month, we always start off the year at our lowest amount of collection, then we steadily build up from there and ended at our highest. So like, for example, in 2022, this will give you a good idea. In February 2022, we were at a 92.9% collection rate, but then we ended out the year at December 2022 at 97.6%. So you can see how it steadily builds up. So we're actually better at the end of February 2023 at 93.3% than we were at 92.9% at the end of February 2022. And I've calculated already the collection rate for March. So year to date, March, for 3 months of the year. And we were, so I mean, February 2023, I think I said February 2022, but I've calculated collection rate for for March 2023, and we ticked up to 95.5%. So that's the year to date collection rate through March. Now, in terms of like comparison speaking, I believe we came in around 95.69% or so for March of 2022. So we're right in the ballpark of exactly where we were at the end of March this year as last year, which is good since we finished out the year for 2022 at 97.6%. Remember, we budgeted for 95% collection rate. And as I pointed out before, you're wondering, so for every percent that we take in over our budgeted collection rate, so if we come in, say at 96% at the end of the year, then ops would get an additional 23,000, I'm just rounding this, 23,600 is what ops would get additionally. So for every collection rate over 95%, we get an additional 23,560 to ops.
Every point.
Every point. Every 100 basis points or every 1 full percent, however you want to think about it. And then SURF, we get an additional 13,500. Roads, we get an additional real close to 14,000 for every 1% above that, every point above 95%. Now, of course, the good thing here is these numbers here, the expense numbers. Obviously, this is the actuals right here, this column. And this column next to it is the better or worse than budget, so to speak. There's not really any, with the exception of salaries, the other individual line items, these buckets, so to speak, these expense buckets, there's nothing really notable, which is great. So that means we're tracking fairly close to what we budgeted, what happened. And in the salaries and benefits, obviously, that means our expenses are less than what we budgeted for. And that's just comes down to just some positions that haven't yet been filled, really contributing to that. So the next page, the capital reserve funds page and operations and UDR columns. But basically, this is a really good snapshot of how much cash we have to work with for our reserves, especially obviously the big funds like SURF and roads right here. And then this is just basically telling you the cash coming in. So we'll just look at SURF. So we're looking at the cash coming in for dues and expenditures going out. So these are expenditures, checks written for stuff like projects that the board has approved to be spent on. And then we have this net available cash in the end of 2/28 or February 2023, this 3,343,529, which will tie right back to the balance sheet. If I were to go right back to the balance sheet, here it is right here for SURF. And then below this, we have some projections. Just if we continue to take in only at a 95% collection rate, this is how much cash we'd have coming into SURF. And then the notable ones would be the SURF loan payments. And of course, this is a very known number, this 277,533. That's how much we'll pay in loan payments for the year, for the remainder of the year, March through December. And then our obligated, this is probably the most interesting number. That's everything that the board has approved that we have not yet written checks for, so to speak. So meaning all the obligated expenses minus what we still haven't paid out on those obligated expenses by the board. This is how much that we would be expecting to pay out for capital projects and stuff that the board has approved. So that gives us net usable cash at the end of what we're looking at the end of the year of 2023, December 31, 2023. And so, and then we have this, of course, I point this out, I'll just point it out again. We have this board recommended carryover balance for SURF. That just means 600,000. So we'd want to have at least 600,000 in cash. So we'll just subtract that away from this, what we're projecting to be the available balance, then which would give us usable 2.862 million at the end of the year for SURF. And it's the same process for roads, mailboxes. Obviously, we have reserve studies on each for SURF, roads, and mailboxes. And so basically, so SURF is up from where it was last year at February 2022. Roads is probably down around 400,000, but this is a component of expenditures. This is what the board has approved to be spent on for roads. And then for UDR, we have 274,805. So last year we had 270, okay, about 302,454. But so we're somewhat within the ballpark in terms of where we were last year with UDR. But this, like I said, this is just anything that is spent out of UDR has to be approved by the board, or it's collection related for past due accounts. Now, these next two pages, so the first page or this next page that I'm going to, this is just dealing with the current month, only February, but I'm going to go ahead and skip over to the next page after that, which is the exact same format as that previous page, but this is year to date. This is January through February 2023 year to date. And this is, now you get to see. So remember this amount, this 188,376, which I already pointed out is right here on the income statement, the operating net income for the organization. Of course, here we see it again here, but the good thing is the up above will show you each individual department. That's how it contributed to that operating net income of 188,376. And before I get into golf, because I always point out golf since that's obviously the biggest revenue center for us. But so the good thing is in terms of like each individual department, net better or worse for each department. Once again, we're pretty close to budgeted, which is good. The only two notable things would really be administration, but that's because of salaries, meaning administration is better than budgeted by close to 27,000 due to salary expenditures, unfilled position right now. And maintenance, same thing, they're better than budgeted by about 19,000. And that's pretty much, I can tell you, that comes down to weather response, snow removal. So, like presumably speaking, in December of 2023, we would expect to eat into this as they start, if snowstorm events start to pick up in December. But that's pretty much what's contributing to that. Timmy, do you have a question?
Yeah, hey, I was just wondering, I was looking at, how do we get 74,071 salary for Marina? That's a number I can't figure out.
Oh, that's for golf, that line item that you're looking at.
Is it?
Yeah, that pertains to golf.
Oh, okay. So I just had it. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. And actually, since we're talking about golf, I'll just talk about that right now. So I'm focusing on this highlighted line item for golf. And okay, so for golf, they had $238,829 in revenues year to date, January through February. So last year they had 233,260. So they're fairly close revenue wise where they were last year. They're about 50, I'll just round these numbers. They're about $5,600 less revenue wise than where they were last year at the end of February 2022. Their total expenditures, which would be actually Timmy already highlighted one of the numbers, the salary benefits, 74,071, and then the all other expenses, 58,401. So that equals 132,472 in total expenses for golf. And then last year, at the end of February 2022 year to date, they had about 121,318. So their expenses are, a little bit higher, 11,154. So basically the bottom line for golf is they have net income of 106,357. Last year, they had net income of about 111,942. So they're fairly close to last year. But now we tightened up their budgeting, meaning in terms of what we would expect to happen at certain times of the year. So they're within about $864 to budget, which in one sense, that's good because we got the budgeted number pretty close to what we were expecting would happen in February.
Just a question real
Oh, sure,
quick
yeah.
on all for February, this 238,829. Part of that is the prepaid
Yes.
memberships that we roll over into that directly from last year.
Yeah, and actually,
Wendy, you have to talk or it won't go on the recording.
She's just saying, repeat it into the microphone.
I'm just curious if the 238,829 for golf, if part of that is the prepaid golf memberships.
Oh, yeah. Actually, so what I did is I scrolled back to the balance sheet, which has in the liability section for operations, prepaid golf memberships. So at the end of December 31, 2022, they had 154,000 or 153,151 in prepaid memberships. And then you'll see it zeroing out in so as of February 2023, it's zero, which
So
means,
that's included, just checking.
yeah, that's correct. And actually, I think that pretty much concludes the financial statements anyways, if anyone else had any other questions. as well.
So if you're done, I have one question on the capital reserve.
Linda?
Page
Yeah,
3.
there you go. Get a little closer to the mic.
I'm gonna swallow it. So underneath the Surf Capital Holding, there's nothing in the usable cash balance. And it's got the same number as we started out with at the top with the increase or decrease. And yet there's 23,000, it looks like we paid out of there. So shouldn't that say 239, 163?
Well, okay, so on this, so we start out the year. So the number at the very top is what the number was at the end of 2022. So at December 31, 2022, we had 262,193, that first bolded number. And then that 23,073 that you pointed out, that 2023 expenditures, those are actually what you're seeing is through February, those are all the additional refunds that we paid out. Yeah.
Gotcha. But then we go down to 239, 163, and that gets repeated there. But then where you have net usable cash balance, you have nothing there.
Yeah.
And then the difference or decrease or increase is just a wash of the beginning number, and I just don't understand that.
Well, actually, it'd be like, so basically, if you think about it, we started out the year at 262,193. We added some interest income on there by about $43. And then we paid out $23,073 in additional refunds to people, which gave us an ending balance of 239,163. And then down below this obligated expenses, I'm just acting like that's all going to be given back. So we can't count on any of that at the end of 2023,
Oh, all right.
which gives a zero.
That's why
uh,
I was asking, because it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you. All right, we're ready to move forward. Next item is request to ratify executive committee's decision to sign the Welcome Center HVAC contract with Mars, and this is going over to Joanne.
Thank you, Sam. So the purpose of this request is to ask for ratification of the executive team's decision to execute a contract with Mars Heating and Air Conditioning for the installation of an HVAC system in the Welcome Center. The Board of Directors approved the allocation of $48,404 from SURF for the installation of an HVAC system in the Welcome Center on April 13th. At that time, approval was not granted for the general manager to execute a contract for this work. During the week of April 16th through 21st, the executive team approved the execution of a contract so that the work could proceed. This contract was executed on April 21st. SVCA's standard construction contract template was used for the document, and a copy of the executed contract is attached to this memo. So I request that the SVCA Board of Directors ratify the Executive Committee's decision to execute a contract with Mars Heating and Air Conditioning for the installation of an HVAC system in the Welcome Center.
Are there any seconds?
Second.
Well, wait, we have, so I move that the Board of Directors ratify the Executive Committee's decision to execute a contract with Mars Heating and Air Conditioning for the installation of an HVAC system in the Welcome Center.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Yes, Linda.
So we were asked to approve $48,404. And when I look at this contract, it's only for $42,274.81. There have been adjustments made to the numbers we looked at that actually weren't provided to us when we voted on this. And I guess I would say, are we then going to reduce that amount because the 48,404 is now 42,274.81. And there's been changes to the paperwork that we looked at.
So the paperwork we had actually does reference that. It talks about an 8% discount if we pay within 30 days. And so the contract actually reflects that there, and it spells it out. So Joel just negotiated to pay once they finish the work, then we'll pay it and we'll get an 8% discount. So even though we approved the estimate, but now we've approved the contract, and that's the amount we'll be billed for. There won't be any more than that.
Okay, I'm saying that this discount, this 8.5, that wasn't on the original paperwork that we had to look at. And also there's been something we originally ordered. We ordered 2 of line item number 6, and we now reduced that down to just half of that. And I'm just saying there's changes that have been made since we voted on it. And as long as we're not going to be paying any more than we approved something and looked at paperwork that didn't have all that information on it, and there have been changes.
So hold on, let me find it. Didn't the packet include both estimates on here?
There were 2 elements to the system, an external and then a ducted system, a ductless and a ducted part of it, and both of those are in here.
So
Did you want us to spend the full amount? Linda, I'm curious as
No,
to
I'm
what your
saying
objection
that-
is.
So it showed on the original one that we approved on the estimate, and remember, it's an estimate, right? So we didn't have the final contract, which was actually just an error. What we probably should have just said, we approve, we vote to, this maximum dollar amount, and that we approve the GM to implement the contract, sign the contract. It was just an oversight, and that's what happened. So, but it does say on the initial estimate, it goes cash discount of 8.5%, cash, check, or financing. It's on the initial estimate from April 5th.
It
Well, that's
shows-
kind of wonderful, isn't it? That we get, I mean, we're paying less than we expected.
That's
It's
correct.
good news, right?
But then I would ask that you amend the motion that you have on the
can.
floor.
So basically, the executives have already made the decision, so the only option is to ratify according to the bylaws. The board is obligated to ratify the decision of the executive committee. You can go to an attorney if you disagree, Linda.
I
But
do
those
disagree.
are
I
the
think that
bylaws.
there
Don't
has
vote
been a
for it.
Change in an amount of
It's
money.
automatically ratified, whether you vote for it or not. And it's a discount. It's an $8,000 discount.
Well, I understand that. I'm
Okay.
just saying it wasn't in any of the original paperwork we looked at.
Yeah, so the process was that Mars came out and did a site visit and explored different options for installing the system. They presented us with several options. We selected from amongst those options and presented the estimate to the board, and that added up to 48,404. So then when we moved to contracting, we discussed when and how we would pay. And at that point, they offered us an additional discount and tightened up their estimate. So since it was under the original amount, it seems like a reasonable thing to have adjusted the amount down. And part of this confusion may be that in my memo, I do say that you approved the allocation of $48,404. I was just reminding you of what action was taken. There is a different amount for the contract, which you could see when you review the contract.
Normally, the language would say something like the board approves an amount up to X. And then we make a motion to also allow the GM to sign the contract. So that would have been the only difference here.
Yeah, and in the background, if it would have been indicated that the lesser amount was, that that's what the contract was signed for, just so it would say it somewhere.
Well, we can't be billed
No,
for
I know,
more than
I
that.
just, I know, and I've just, I have it after it's done, so I can't, it comes in the board packet, and I'm just saying, if you were gonna be honest about this, you would say, you would add in there that the executed contract is attached in the amount of 40, whatever, you just put that amount on the end, and then it's complete. I went back and carefully looked at what the original documents we were given.
Point of order. You really can't call someone dishonest, Linda.
I'm not calling
Eh,
anyone
Please.
dishonest.
You said
about
if
you,
we're
so-
being honest, and we are being honest.
Right.
Thank you, Nancy. So the motion is to ratify the executive's decision to implement the contract.
Is there any more discussion? I'm calling for the vote. All those in favor? We've got 1, 2, 3.
Just name off who voted for it and who didn't. So Linda and Timmy, are you voting no or are you
I'm abstaining from voting. I've explained why.
And I just want to know if it was an abstention or a no, that's all. Okay.
Brian?
Friend saying yes.
All right. Passes. Next item is moving on to like new business. Reserve study proposal, and then pass that over to Joel.
Okay, so what you have, well, basically, they get Smart Property, they gave us 3 different ones for each one of our studies: surf, roads, mailboxes. But so this year, obviously, we did a full level 1 last year, which means this year we'll just do a level 3, just a update, no site visit update. And all 3 of these studies just combined total $4,956. And so it's just basically just approving these level 3 updates, no site visits with Smart Property, who the board voted to use last year for the level 1 full study. Any questions on these?
Anybody have any questions for
No, but
Joel?
can I just go back to some, I said that other was $8,000 different.
It was
I just want to clarify
9,000.
that, and that's not correct.
9,500.
I think it's like 5,000 or something. What is it? 6,000 and change. So my apologies on that.
Oh,
Sorry.
oh, no, that's fine.
Just have one question on the reserve study update.
Uh-huh.
That's gonna be available and ready for us to do since he's just doing a level 3.
Yeah.
When budgeting comes around and all those numbers that we have to have from him.
Right. Yes, yes.
Only question.
This one will be the easy one versus last year.
Is there any other questions about the reserve study? So the motion then is for the Board of Directors to accept the level 3 reserve study proposals from Smart Property for a combined total of $4,956 to be paid for from operations to immediately begin the level 3 reserve study process. Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion? So I need to read it. This one's wrong? Oh, well, it's the next. All right, so the motion is for the Board of Directors to accept the level 3 reserve study proposals from Smart Property for a combined total of $4,956 to be paid for from operations to immediately begin the level 3 reserve study process. So I'm calling for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. Next up is a resolution to establish the 50-year anniversary committee. And we've all seen the proposed resolution. So the motion is for the Board of Directors resolution to establish the 50-year anniversary committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, please. Yes,
I
Linda.
just have one question. I see their deliverables and everything, and I know they're an ad hoc committee. I thought ad hoc committees had to submit minutes. Are we not gonna do that since that doesn't say anything about that in here?
It's
did.
written off of the template that the document review committee made, so it's just filled in the blanks of that template. It should say minutes in the template. Do you recall, Nancy?
It says in section 3, written minutes shall be posted on the website and filed with the secretary.
So what this is it took the language that AJ had given out a couple of months ago, whatever it was, that document that was filled out, and it's just exactly the same, only it was moved over into that.
Okay. I was
template.
looking in deliverables. If it's okay. Just checking.
Any other discussion?
Is this a completely different committee than when we originally kind of talked about this? It was going to be part of the communication committee? Is it totally different?
No, this is different. This is just for the 50th anniversary activities, events, and whatever.
So it's
stuff.
open to homeowners. You're asking for volunteers to be on that committee?
Well, the board has to approve the committee, and then we'll appoint 2 people, 2 directors. One will be the chair and one will be the other director. And then, then community members can volunteer to be on there as well.
But it has nothing to do with the communication committee.
No, but part of the deliverables will be to communicate to the community about the event, and encourage people to participate in the events around the 50th anniversary.
Okay.
Yes, Linda.
So when we looked at the budget calendar, there was a town hall that was on there as the 50th. Is that already something that the board has indicated they're gonna do for sure? I think it's like sometime in
19.
August.
8/19.
Yeah, so that's planned because the 50th anniversary of the incorporation is in August. And so it's kind of planned to do them at the same time, so that there'll be like a event, hopefully, I don't know, whatever the committee plans, but food trucks and entertainment or whatever, I don't know. And then the thought was to also at that point have a town hall. That maybe I did listen to NNE, and NNE mentioned maybe being there, trying to encourage candidates, things like that. So there's a lot of opportunity to participate.
Just checking to make sure that that was one event that is still, that's already, the board has already basically approved. That's all.
Well, we have to do a town hall. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, just that one that we looked at. It's not mentioned in here anywhere, but I just wanted to be sure that that's one event, but then there can be other events.
Yeah, it was just meant to coincide. Yeah.
Gotcha.
That town hall on 8/19 isn't anything to do with the AGM town halls though, correct?
Well, it is the AGM town hall, but it would be, that's pretty much after we pretty much figured out our budget, and that's when we inform people. Ideally, if everything goes well, we can have a town hall earlier. We tried to do that last year. It just couldn't get coordinated because it would be awesome to have an actual real town hall where people can talk about anything that they want to talk about and bring up, and but that's the goal of that, is to actually make these more actual authentic town halls, to have more involvement from the community.
The last time we talked about this with communication committee and handling the AGM town halls. AJ was of the mind that he was gonna let N&E handle that.
Yeah, that's the candidate forums.
Oh, okay, 'cause
Yeah.
that's what I'm asking about. The
Yeah, so,
town hall's different than a
yeah, the town hall's
okay,
different.
all right. I'm just getting my terminology straight. Okay.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none. So the question is, the motion on the table is to approve the Board of Directors resolution to establish the 50-year anniversary committee. All those in favor? Unanimous, passed. Now the fun stuff starts. Now we need to appoint a chair of the committee and a second director. So that leads us into discussion and nominations. Yes, Nancy.
I nominate Brian. He isn't here to defend himself.
Oh, I'm gonna second that.
Now you have to ask him if he accepts if he's elected.
Um, Okay, so Brian's nominated for chair.
Brian's frowning.
Is there any other nominations for chair? Seeing none, all those in favor? So we've got,
Do you accept, Brian?
did Brian go, we've got 3, 5, 6. So it passes with Brian being the chair. And now we need a second director. Is that done by us?
He has.
Oh,
has to
did-
accept.
oh, we left out a part of that. Yes. Brian, do you accept this nomination and vote?
Sure. I love history, so that'll be fun.
All right, thank you. Okay, any more nominations for the second director?
Asia, would you want to be on it?
Oh.
Okay, I'll volunteer to be the second on the committee until someone else decides they'll do it.
That part, is that,
Well, wait. And Michael could,
I don't know. This is planning like a festivity sort of thing. Can I volunteer to help?
Mhm.
Cause I do a lot of festivities.
You absolutely can. And even if like what we're doing here is like chair and a second, anybody can, this is a community event. So if anybody can participate. So Joanne will put something out for people to volunteer and however anybody can participate, that would be
Well, I
awesome.
know a lot of food vendors and other musicians and stuff around that we use at events all over Bellingham. So I have kind of an insight to that, so I'd help.
So do you want to be the other board director on the committee or
Sure.
do you, okay. So
Ah.
I will.
very good.
Running away
So
from
I
Um,
will withdraw my. my.
I'd like to also nominate Sonia as well.
Oh, you're too bad.
I guess she's back on.
All right, well,
No, that's fine. I'll withdraw and you can be, if you're okay with that and if everybody votes for it, that's great. And then I'll do the same, what you just offered. I'm happy to help and assist. So.
all right. So any other nominations? We're gonna call for the vote then. Is Michael, all those in favor of Michael being the second on the anniversary committee?
And voted yes.
He just voted. I saw that. Okay, so it's a unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's really quiet in here without that heater going. Very nice. All right, we're gonna move on to next part of business. Now, this one, with some reading here. Next up is the N&E Committee's manual changes. And AJ provided the attorney's comments and also a Word document which collates everything into one document. The purpose of this discussion is to gain consensus based on Richard's advice. We can all come to consensus, then the manual with red line changes will come back next meeting for final approval. So we're looking at AJ's docs. You could see the proposed changes listed 1 through 4 items. 3 and 4 uses Richard's language. Is there any discussion? Nancy?
I want to point out on the language for the person withdrawing, or in the case where somebody withdraws, he has replaced the section of the manual that is 4.1.12, which says after 2 business days ending at the close of business on the second day from the drawing, no candidate withdrawals will be accepted. That goes away if we accept the wording, because you cannot say no candidate withdrawals will be accepted and then proceed to talk about a withdrawal. What we are talking about is a system where there's no way to take someone's name off the ballot or off the documents after their name has been drawn and their candidacy has been accepted. I really don't think this thing has been thought through. And when you go in and read the attorney's comments and think about it, that's a contradiction built in there. And I don't know that you meant to do that.
Okay, so do you want to give some suggested language that you're talking about?
No, not now. I'm just pointing out that there is a built-in contradiction there. And the lawyer pointed that out when he said this replaces, it's not in addition to 4.1.12. It replaces it.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think that's what we were saying.
Well, you may not have been saying it. It's what the attorney reads, and that's it.
Well, he misunderstood what we were saying. There was somewhere there was a thing about 4 days, and I don't remember where it came from, but in the current NE manual that was updated and all that we went through when Linda was the NE chair, we went through and the board voted and so anyhow, the approved, I don't know the exact correct terms of the, anyhow, how the board approved the changes and this is the current manual and it says 4.1.2, it says after 2 business days, you have 2 days to withdraw is basically what we were saying. And we want to keep it that way. You have 2 days to withdraw. And after that, that's their name goes onto the ballot. Isn't that what happened last year?
So the way he his suggested change is to say that until it's printed, like they can withdraw up until it's printed, basically.
Oh.
And then once it's printed, then it's going to obviously remain because we have
Yeah,
a deadline.
it's
and
been
time.
printed.
So the other aspect of what he was saying, from the way I interpret it, is that he's saying that anybody that withdraws up until the date that it's printed, he wrote mailed, but the thing is print and mail is kind of like one action with Unilect. So up until the day it's printed, if they withdraw prior to that, then the SBCA can announce it. Once it's printed and they're on the ballot, the SBCA will not make an announcement
Okay.
and will not,
Okay.
get itself involved.
What
in
we
that.
were trying to do, was for future AGMs and future N&E committees and candidate clarity and all that was to remove potential drama that seems to go on in every AGM that we have here. And because we had the things that happened last year that we don't want to have happen in the future. There were a number of things that happened that we'd really like to, for other future N&E committees, the current one and future ones, we'd like to have it so that the confusion isn't there of, well, we did this way in the past, or a person that had withdrawn was then promoted in a board meeting, and even though they had said they'd withdrawn, and different things that happened. And so we really would like to see it simplified in some way. And I understand. So that's all, that's fine. A person can withdraw anytime up until it goes to final print, and it says by our calendar that we're going to send it for final print on 9/15 by our calendar. So we were hoping to what we're trying to do is make the process smoother, and so the final thing that goes to them is a final, and there's going to be no wasted. We had a lot of wasted votes last year for a candidate that didn't want the position, and other things that happened in that, and that's why we brought that up, because it says in here, after 2 business days from the drawing date, no candidate can withdraw. So we understood that they had 2 days to withdraw, and that was it.
That's just the way it'd been written, and that's why he made the suggested change.
Okay.
He said, if you're going to change the language at all, right, then that part needs to be eliminated.
So
So
they'll
it'll
take,
have a different language, and the N&E, when you accept those candidates. So maybe it might be a little easier if we go back to, there's 4 issues on this document, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you go back to one of the things that N&E had asked for was a switch in the language, because so the application packet normally does not ask a candidate to send their bio and photo to the chair of the N&E. The reason for that is because it stays anonymous to everyone, including the N&E committee, until the day of the that you open those, until I don't know what that day is called, but
The drawing date.
the drawing date. And so by changing that wording that you guys were recommending, where instead you said, as part of the application packet, all candidates shall submit a maximum 100-word digital biography and photograph. So there's 2 issues with that one. One being that you're saying shall, number 1, which means you're putting a restriction on an owner's ability to run for a position, because you're saying if you don't provide a photograph or a biography, you can't run. No, by putting the word shall is
Okay.
what I'm saying. So the second part of that is when you say it's part of the application packet. Normally what happens is that the N&E committee, once you've done the thing, what's it called again? Opening the drawing day.
Drawing.
Yeah,
Once
drawing.
you've done the drawing date, then the N&E chair sends out notification letters to the candidates. That's when you would have an opportunity to write in there and say, this is, if you withdraw, you have until so-and-so date to withdraw, and we'll announce it to the community. After that date, your name will appear on the ballot, and SVC has no more involvement in it.
Okay, so we were in that concept, again, we were trying to make things kind of more concise and more a tighter line on it so that we could send a final on the 15th, but if they don't send, so, okay, because we don't know who they are until we open the envelopes on 9/5. Okay, so we can't ask anybody to do anything. I think the word shall shouldn't have been in there when we wrote it. I was kind of wanted that we would suggest that, could you include it when you do it so that we have a smoother process? But if that's, I guess if they don't have to send a bio. I mean, I know there's been some candidates that haven't sent one and there's no picture and
Just
stuff in
The
the
problem
past,
is with
so.
it is the language of it, reveals
strike
their
that one.
identity, right? So that.
Willing
that's
to
why he
strike
didn't know.
number one.
Yeah, and so that just kind of goes back to,
I
brought that
understand.
up
Yeah, the
to
wording was,
explain,
I understand that. So that, I think for it, speaking for Anthony, is that we could strike number one.
And then, number two is the one where the entity asks that upon declaration of candidacy, any current entity member seeking an elected position on the board, entity, or architectural control committee shall immediately resign from the entity. The RCWs do not allow that.
Okay, but our bylaws and our entity manual say they can't, that a person that's on any entity and running for another position can't count or touch ballots and all that. And we had a big drama last year with that. So, but the attorney gave us a clear understanding of that, and that's fine. But he also gave us a clear direction that we could go by the board putting on the ballot a bylaw amendment and letting the homeowners decide whether someone on a committee should recuse themselves, and let the homeowners decide, can we change the bylaw? And if you're running for a position, then you recuse yourself from the position you're in, you step down and you're not on those committees anymore. And I think that the homeowners should have to say in it, not the board.
Well, sure, but the board, any proposed bylaw amendment still has to go through the
know.
board, and the board would have to.
I'm
vote
saying the
for it.
final thing
Yeah.
for bylaw change should be by the
So it
homeowner.
would have to come back when we're looking at the AGM.
Okay,
I think you've mistaken and used the word recuse when you mean resign, because recuse is a partial thing. You stay on it, you just say, I'm not going to do this little piece. You're talking about resigning, as I understand it.
well, stepping down, yes. Okay,
So as of now, the bylaws don't allow it because it's silent on that. And so the RCW will dictate, right? So like what you're talking about, it's the same thing as what happened with the transfer fee. Our bylaws didn't allow that transfer fee. So therefore it was inappropriate. Same thing with this. It would be inappropriate to actually force someone to resign from the committee just because they want to run for the board unless there's a bylaw change. So there really won't be any, we can discuss it, but there's no, nothing to do with it. Right.
okay,
You know, I have to agree with Michael on this. There's been 2 times that I can think of that we've had a chair of entity that ran for the board. And in both instances, it's been bad because they didn't resign from the committee. They stayed active. And especially if it's a chair, this can really, and I think this year it showed it, that there was just so much turmoil because of it. And I think it's a cleaner thing to do. You know, it's bad enough if you have this just a member of the committee, but if you have a chair, it's really difficult.
and I do,
It's a conflict of interest,
Oh, it's not really.
or it can be perceived as a.
Thank you,
conflict of
Sonia.
interest.
You beat me to the point of order.
It's
Fair
definitely
enough.
bad optics.
Timey.
Right. I understood. Yeah, just clear.
So, yeah, everybody was at times holding up hands. So, is it, because we shifted too in our discussion too. So has everybody been able to communicate what their question was so far? Anybody else have something? Back to you, Michael.
I just want to make sure that it's understood that, Nancy she didn't step down, but she did turn the keys over to
Could
the.
we use the chair?
Okay, the last chair
There
did
you go.
turn the keys over to the general manager, so the chair was not in any way doing anything that was inappropriate, and the last chair handled it really well. It was just perceived by the homeowners. It created a lot of confusion, and that's what we're trying to get rid of. But the last chair did do a great job of standing back, but we thought that there was a lot of discussion on it, and in the future, we would just like to see it. And if it takes a bylaw change, then that's what we would like to bring up. So I'm done.
Okay, we kind of neglected someone. Brian?
I was going to basically just echo what Michael just said, and the fact she did a really good job, in terms of stepping back and such. That's all.
Okay. Nancy?
I'd like to point out that it would have been very different last year if we had had a staff member assigned to NNE. If you read the NNE manual, staff is mentioned 67 times. A staff member is an integral part of the election process, and there wasn't one. And for part of it, there wasn't a general manager either, because she hadn't gotten that title yet. And I think,
Well, there was a general manager. He went on vacation.
oh, that's right. Sorry, that one went on vacation. But I hope that's not a normal happening, because that's what really made that last election a difficult thing to put together. Thank you.
So let's go to number 3, because that's where the recommended is. So number 3 is where AJ put some language where the attorney had given language, and it's highlighted in yellow in that sheet, that document he sent. And that's just taking the language that Richard wrote, because, okay, so the NNE recommends adding the following to section 4.1.12. A candidate who wishes to withdraw after the date called out in 4.1.12 above shall do so in writing to the chair of the NNE and to the board. No reason for withdrawing need be given. The communication must clearly state the position for which they applied and the statement, if elected, I will not serve, and must give their permission to the statement, that the statement be shared with the community. And then it talks about the withdrawal date. One of the things the attorney stated was that by putting those exact words in there, you're kind of opening everybody up to a potentially legal quandary, because if they don't use the exact words you're saying and they just let you know that they've withdrawn. So he made a suggestion. He uses very similar language, but he says a candidate who wishes to withdraw shall provide written notice to the chair of NNE and the board president. No reason for withdrawing need be given. Submission of such a withdrawal constitutes the candidate's express consent for Sudden Valley to notify members of the candidate's withdrawal. Any withdrawal shall be effective on the date that it is first received by the chair of NNE and the president. The second part of that was broken down because Richard referenced it in a second comment. And so that's why it's split into 2 pieces. And it's basically where the NNE was making the statement about how if someone withdraws, how it will be addressed, and also how to count that vote if they're still on the ballot. And so that's why AJ went ahead and put that, let's see here where it goes. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it explains about that a candidate's withdrawal, let's see, the SVCA will provide notice to the membership of a candidate's withdrawal via official SVCA notification channels only up until the time the ballots are printed. Thereafter, SVCA shall not provide notice of withdrawal. It just is a little, because you guys named off every avenue, and so it was just easier to call it a official communication channel. And then the second part of that same thing is votes cast for a candidate who has formally withdrawn their application shall be counted and reported. Regardless of the number of votes received, any votes cast for a candidate who has withdrawn will be ignored for purposes of determining which candidates received a plurality of votes. This is actually the same instruction that Richard, all of these are the same instructions that he gave last year during the AGM, but he just responded directly to the NNE's questions on these.
Linda?
I'm confused. I'm looking at the lawyer's opinion where the board president is called out and president is struck through and it just says to the board. I think last year when we did have a late withdrawal, it was kind of confusing. It's the NNE who receives anybody's nomination. And I really think it's the chair of NNE that should be the person that is notified. And I definitely agree in writing, but I don't know if that happened that way last year at all.
She notified the board. And so in effect, she notified the chair of the NNE because NNE receives board email. Yeah.
But I'm saying in this yellow section, it says that they're only going to notify the board president. I don't think that should be the case. I think it should be the chair of nominations and elections and the board, because it is the duty of the board.
It does say NNE and the board.
Well, that's the way NNE wrote it. Richard added president, but just so you know, and you can see what he said in there, this is ultimately a business decision of the board. So these are his recommendations, but if we can tweak it, if the board agrees.
Where it has in blue what the attorney's recommendation was.
So does any,
Crossed out.
I'm good with the whole board receiving it. I mean, is everybody else okay with that?
Is the blue then the darker blue in that crossed out, or is that just highlighted?
No, I think it just highlights the differences between
Okay.
the two.
Yeah.
I think the attorney wanted one person. There are two people, one on each branch, sort of NNE and the board. And he didn't want it just to go to the board, because who in the board could accept it? Anybody? It really should be one of the executives. It should be like the vice president, the secretary, the treasurer, or the president. So that's why he specified president. He wanted a person instead of a group of 9.
Michael?
So we had a long discussion on this and it went around and around and trying to get the wording, but essentially this says what we wanted it to say was that. And so I agree with what is being suggested on this one.
Is everybody okay with the language that's in yellow? Because if that's the case, what we could do is just.
Brian? Hello, Brian?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that, I don't, when it's been said that, the community was upset, it was just really just a small vocal group that took some issue. And so, yeah, I don't think it was a big community issue, but in terms of Nancy being chair, but anyhow.
Thank you, Brian. So
Linda?
I guess I just have, in this first section of the yellow section, it says that written notice will be sent to the chair of nominations and elections and to the board president. Then further down, it says any withdrawal shall be effective on the date that it is first received by the chair of nominations and elections or the board president. Shouldn't it also say and like it does above?
He wanted one person.
Then it should be.
I'm convinced he's after one from each branch.
That's why I'm saying it says, here it says or rather than and like it does above. I'm a. totally in
If
agreement.
you say and in the second instance, you require both people to receive it before it becomes official, where if you say or, the first person that receives it can accept it and it's, so let's say that we had to get it in by the 15th in order to exclude it from the ballot. And the chair of the Nominations and Elections Committee was around and got an email on the evening of the 14th, but the board president wasn't available for some reason. To have one person be able to accept it makes sense in that instance.
Okay. He's got two shots, only one has to hit.
Yeah, but printing of the documents, as you well know, gets to be a really tight business.
So if we agree on this, then what AJ was suggesting is then at the next, it can come back on our consent agenda and just pass it like that. It'll come back redlined, the NNE manual will come back redlined and we'll just approve it that way. It'll be official.
You'll comprise this so it's much easier to understand.
It'll be the
so that
full
we'll just-
NNE manual
Okay.
with these red line
Right.
changes within it, and then we're just approving that
I'm good.
change to the manual.
I'm glad that it
Amy?
clarifies that you have to submit in writing. Because we've often said that you can withdraw. I think it's nice that it now says you have to send it in writing. You know, you can't, I think that was a little bit of the confusion before too. And it's
Yeah.
never said that, and I'm glad that
I
it's.
agree with that because somebody signing something said that they did it rather than somebody did it for them in a
You need
conversation.
to know that one year when I was on NNE, one of the candidates actually was on the ballot, garnered enough votes to have been elected and came the morning when we were doing in-person voting and handed me a slip of paper and said, give this to the chair of NNE, and it was his withdrawal. So that's why I'm saying it's just,
Tommy, you had a question or?
Yeah, I'm just confused by why thereafter SBCA will not provide notice of a withdrawal. I mean, it just seems to me it's our responsibility to let the community know if someone has withdrawn.
I'll take
So,
That's just
oh,
fair.
okay.
From what I was reading here was, we're gonna do a dedicated amount of notifying everyone, but once it comes up to, printing time, game's over. Because now you're actually making a statement about choosing someone for the board. So all this stuff was actually stating that all the notices would go out about a person taking themselves out of the running. But then once it's printed, there'd be no more conversation about that once they're mailed, hitting the mail.
The association has to, Richard explains in his, where is it? He basically explains that it's like, the association unduly influences the outcome of the votes. And it's also not, it's not fair to anyone that maybe perhaps had already voted before they heard about this person withdrawing. So the people that do hear about it, have an advantage over the people that voted originally. And so this just ensures that it's a level playing field when people are voting their ballots.
Michael?
And what the quote that Sonia's quoting is the attorney's opinion from last year from a candidate. Could I possibly get a copy of that? I've asked twice for it and I've never seen it.
Yeah, the reason is because it's also similar to this. He makes comments on
Yeah,
an
I'd
email.
still
and
like-
So that's why it wasn't released because it's actually part of an
Yeah.
email exchange. And so it wasn't actually an opinion. And so it was just shared that way with the chair, but we'll have to ask. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna say one more thing. The document that AJ sent, if you guys want, that to be released past the board, like, Michael has it, but to release it to NNE or to the community, we're gonna have to vote for that
That was
tonight.
gonna be my next question. Can I share this with the NNE committee?
I hope
Um,
they really should be able to. I'd like to vote on that if we could.
But one thing, okay, so, 4 people run for mayor of Bellingham and they hit the deadline and it goes to print and one of the candidates gets hit by a bus and he's dead. That information comes out through news media and different things. How is that any different than a candidate withdrawing and being, people know that that person is not going to run? I'm just asking. It's kind of makes no sense to me, but it seems like you
From
wouldn't
what
want
I
that
read
information.
is,
But I know there's some liabilities involved.
yes, the staff of Sudden Valley could be accused of giving wrong information at that point, and we just don't want them to make a mistake, which would in turn pick or
Isn't
choose when they shouldn't be doing that.
Isn't there written withdrawal by his statement, a public notice that they're withdrawing?
You could add that with your packet, right? Like you could just add a template form. If you want to withdraw, you need to fill this out with the language it needs to have with the
Yeah.
date. The reason he does it like that, and again, I'm not an attorney, so I can't really tell you the legal stuff behind it, but his opinion is it minimizes the risk of a challenge to the election. Because, again, someone who didn't know about it and they voted their ballot a certain way, and then they found out later because the association, that then involves us in something that is in, one set of voters had different information than another set of voters. And so he said
Adding, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
The packet, that's a good idea.
Nancy?
I contacted Whatcom County Elections to ask, what do you do with withdrawals? And their answer was the application period ends on a Friday and candidates have until the following Friday to withdraw. If a candidate withdraws within that following Friday period, they put a note on their website. After that, they do not accept or acknowledge withdrawals, nothing from county government. Now, what the newspaper and the Facebook and the various political parties put out is all on them. But the county, and we're the equivalent position of the county in this case, says nothing, even if they drop dead or go to jail. And some of them get elected from jail. Not here, but in other places.
Okay, so now, are we going to get this all printed? I mean, is there anything that,
if we're in agreement, we just need consensus is what AJ asked for. And then it'll come back next time for our final vote. So if everybody kind of agrees with this yellow highlighted stuff, then he'll bring it back.
does everyone agree with that? Show of hands?
And says yes.
Okay, then we're gonna let that get processed. And we will move along to our next item.
Mr. Vice President?
Yes.
I wanted to ask too of Director Volt, can we take a vote to release this
Oh,
information,
Oh.
please, to the NNE committee? May we? Because that was something Sonia brought up, and I think sometimes it's really hard to be a member of that committee and not be able to share, especially if you're the chair, and not be able to share information.
Anybody that watches tonight's meeting just saw all this information, right?
So it's released, yeah.
just curious.
Yeah, but so now we're talking the actual document that we're gonna receive in our next.
Okay.
All the
So he's
communications?
Yeah,
asking
the
for the
communication.
attorney thing. So so do you want to make a motion? Is it going to the N and E committee or are we wanting to post it onto the website as an addendum to the minutes or whatever for this board meeting or to the agenda?
Everybody, the community will see the final that we
Right.
bring back. I just think it's important that the N and E committee gets to see some of this stuff. In the past, as a chair for a long time, many times that things weren't approved and you had to go back to your committee and you couldn't discuss some of the attorney's opinions. And I think it's important that they know. They have to understand it's confidential.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think this is real
So the-
confidential, so.
So the vote would be that we're making a motion that we share this information with the nominations and election committee members.
Yes.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
I don't want to see it on Facebook.
So all those in favor? Motion carries. Next item.
Over to you, Mike.
You're hanging in there?
Hold on here.
Mike Brock, Maintenance Superintendent. I have a capital request to request funding approval for a utility task vehicle, otherwise known as a UTV, for snow removal. A little bit of background for this. For the past several years, SDCA has
Mike.
outsourced specific roads.
Mike, a little closer. Thank you.
For the past several years, SDCA has outsourced specific roads to an outside vendor for snow removal. Due to very steep grades, these road sections are not accessible with standard snow removal equipment owned by Sudden Valley. A contractor has been utilizing a UTV equipped with a snowplow to perform snow removal on these sections of roads. Over a 3-year period, the average cost to outsource this service was $38,155 per year. By purchasing a UTV equipped with a snowplow, Sudden Valley would be able to plow these roads with existing personnel and not rely on an outside vendor. This would allow flexibility to plow roads at optimal times and would allow faster response time when service is requested. Sudden Valley staff are familiar with these types of vehicles and would adapt quickly to safe operation. By purchasing a small sanding unit as an accessory, staff would have the ability to respond to service requests in areas that previously could not be accessed for sanding. For example, this past winter, a motorist that was unfamiliar with the area attempted to travel down a very steep grade and became stuck. A tow truck responded, but was not able to reach the stranded vehicle. Due to the location of the stranded vehicle, Sudden Valley equipment could not safely access that section of roadway. Sudden Valley currently has the following snow removal equipment: 5 trucks that can be equipped with plows and sanders, 1 truck that can be equipped with an anti-ice brine tank, 1 tractor that can be equipped with a plow and brine tank. This past winter season, Sudden Valley utilized all available equipment to implement the 2022-2023 snow plan. A truck and tractor were utilized to apply anti-ice brine prior to snow events. Trucks equipped with plows and sanders were used to clear primary roads, secondary roads, followed by all the residential roads in Sudden Valley. The tractor was utilized to maintain mailbox areas and to clear intersections. The tractor is well suited for this task. It has a short wheelbase and increased visibility. Due to steep grades and narrow lane widths, there are currently 45 Sudden Valley roads that are designated as UTV routes. A UTV is a much safer alternative over a truck with a snowplow or a tractor to maintain these roads. Due to its small size, low center of gravity, and light weight, a UTV is much more maneuverable and can stop easier on steep slopes. Purchasing a UTV to perform this task is fiscally responsible. Included in the 2024 budget, there was $54,080 allocated for snow removal equipment. A portion of that has been used to replace a sander in 2023, leaving a remaining balance of $45,027.54. By applying these funds now to order a UTV in 2023, it will be available for the 23-24 winter season. Based on historical averages paid to an outside vendor, Following the first season of use, Sudden Valley could potentially save nearly $40,000 each year in snow removal cost. Purchasing a used TV was evaluated and the cost savings would be marginal. The preferred option is to order a new unit that comes with a 2-year, 1,000 hours standard warranty and is equipped with a sander to increase Sudden Valley snow removal response capabilities. Purchasing a UTV equipped with a sander is an important option for this asset to be fully optimized. 3 quotes were received for similar UTVs, the sander is included. One from Skolton's Equipment for a Kubota RTV, one from Pape Machinery for a John Deere, and one from Bobcat of Bellingham for a Bobcat UW56. The Bobcat sander is the top of its class, but substantially more expensive than the other units quoted. The John Deere and the Kubota are comparable units and both are very capable. The Kubota RTV X1100 CW with the V5005 sander is the preferred option. It has a compatible sander that is designed for the unit and is the most competitively priced. The John Deere model had an aftermarket sander as opposed to one that was designed for the unit. So the proposal is provide funding for the purchase of a Kubota RTV X1100 CW utility vehicle with a V5060 72-inch front snowplow and a V5005 sander. The request is $39,331.20 for the purchase of the above proposal to be paid from Serve.
Does the Kubota have a winch and a cab heater?
Yes. Enclosed cab, fully articulating blade.
Just not listed on the quote, so.
Okay. Here's
So,
the quotes in the back of the packet too. That shows a little picture.
so the motion is I move that the Board of Directors approve the allocation of $39,331.20 from SURF for purchasing a UTV for snow removal. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Linda?
I have only one question. If we buy this, most of all of our equipment, our trucks or whatever that we use for plowing, they're not scheduled to possibly need to be replaced. If I look at most of our equipment here, there's only one thing that really looks bad. And it's got 15 years in one, and that's this whole big amount of money. All the rest of the stuff has decent years left, but we also use all of our trucks for that. There's not a chance that one of them is at its end of life and we might need to replace it, or we'd have to get that from a different budget.
I don't believe there's any that are need to be scheduled. All of our equipment is in good working order. And we were able to do a very good job this past season of maintaining everything at the end of the season and cleaning it and putting it away properly. We've replaced some parts on some of the sanders, so I'm confident that next year we're going to go the season even better.
Gotcha. That's all I was concerned about.
Oh, actually, I was going to point out too that. So, because this is replacing, right, what our vendors do.
Correct.
Right, yeah. So at the end of 2022, so we spent for snow removal services, real close to 38,000 from operations. That's like the price of just that alone that we would have, not just for 1 year, but years after that. So, and we also even have it in the budget right now, we have for 2023, for that same line item, we have about 10,000 budgeted. So conceivably, we wouldn't be spending any of that. We've only spent about 500 so far out of that $10,000 budget.
I
So,
was gonna say, I saw the baby plow up after I had surgery
Yeah.
in February when it was bad, so I know they've worked already part of this time. You might have gotten a billing from them.
actually, that might be it, possibly that.
And I would point out, this is strictly a business decision and has no reflection on previous service.
Yeah, actually, and Joanne can kind of expand on that, but some of this also was Shane with Elite Landscaping. He's done an awesome job. Everybody loves Baby Plow, but it's also becoming really difficult for him to turn a profit because, you know, it's a lot of wear and tear. It takes up a lot of his time. It pulls from their other businesses, you know, that they work on. He's wants to focus more on the condo parking lots and that type of thing. And yeah, just
Flatter,
exactly. What's that?
the flatter areas that are manageable and less wear and tear on their equipment.
Will there need to be training for this or is it just,
There will be training. The nice thing about this is a lot of the staff are familiar with those types of vehicles. So the learning curve will be a lot less than our bigger plows.
Yep.
But we will do a training next fall, just like we did this year.
okay, sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Do you say Joanne has something?
No, I just
Oh,
had
just,
talked with Shane and he had kind of
okay.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
then-
in case you want to know, the equipment that Baby Plow uses is almost at end of life. And the year before I joined, he had actually asked for a 3-year renewal so that he had assurances that his investment in new equipment would be appropriately spread across that 3-year contract. Given the high cost of it to Sudden Valley, like Mike said, this is just a better business decision for us. Baby Plow was extraordinarily reliable in all weathers and worked long hours, and we appreciate that effort. It was worth what we paid, but we see a more economic method to go forward.
Is there any other discussion? And we're gonna call for the question of motion on the table is for the Sudden Valley Community Association Board of Directors to approve the allocation of $39,331.20 from SURF for purchasing a UTV for snow removal. Those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thanks, Mike.
Welcome.
And thank you for the awesome job you and your crew did this winter. We've gotten just tons of compliments for how much better the roads have been taken care of during the winter. It's whatever you're doing, keep doing. Thank you so much.
All right, next order of business is was there anything else that was on here concerning Mike? You could bail out if you,
I
minute.
think he's going to stick around just in case we have some questions about the culverts.
okay. All right,
Have someone answer those questions who's actually dug out culverts. All right, so next up is the on-call engineering services capital request. The purpose of it is to request funding approval for on-call engineering services coming from the 2023 capital roads budget. This request would provide funding for on-call engineering services to address emergency issues that are related to roadway and drainage infrastructure. The request would allow rapid response to unanticipated damage or issues that arise outside of the planned improvements. Services provided from these funds might include, but are not limited to, technical evaluations, preliminary engineering, and permitting support for unplanned projects that arise. Based on the age of Sudden Valley's infrastructure, this type of emergency issue is anticipated to occur every now and then. And so the proposal is to authorize $40,000 from roads for on-call engineering services in 2023.
so we have moved that the Board of Directors approve the allocation of $40,000 from roads for on-call engineering services in 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Linda. And discussion. Stu?
What's the basis for the $40,000?
Actually, this is also the amount on the 10-year capital plan on roads to 40,000 for the on-call engineering.
So it's just it's a obligated amount. So what the reason they're asking for it up front is as we're
Yeah,
like,
I'm just asking where they came up with the number.
It was from the budget.
Thanks.
it's, it's been the same amount.
Yeah, it's pretty much, it tracks kind of historical spending that we seem to spend in this line item for PNW.
Okay, thanks.
So I have a question. So this is just for 2023?
Yes.
And I'd like to mention that when we charge anything against that account, we would bring it forward to the board to explain what the spend is for. But to have those funds available allows us just to act more quickly. You know, if you have a landslide or a culvert collapse or a bridge fail, you need to start immediately in order to implement remediation and get the traffic moving and people safe. And so any delay at that point is inappropriate. And that's why we were asking for a relatively limited amount. Just to be, you know, when you look at these roads projects, they're not small, but this gets us started. And then we can bring all that information back to the board for more formal approval.
Linda?
Just have a quick question for Joel. I know sometimes, and it's, I guess, because I look at the GL as much as I do, they might charge something to a project that then turns into a project. And sometimes then that money is moved into that project so that we still retain that an open amount for emerging, you know, for if we need the on-call, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Just confirming what I think I'm reading.
That's why this amount is lower. Because it's basically, it's giving us a small amount of flexibility to take action in the moment when it's necessary.
And most of the time it turns into a project that
Yeah.
it gets transferred. Gotcha.
Thanks, Linda. That's a good note for everybody that is in the community following along on our show tonight. And for anybody that wants to look it up, it's there. So it's just a little reminder that it does get shifted over, but we have the money waiting and ready for that. Okay, so the question, the motion on the table is Sudden Valley Board of Directors approve the allocation of $40,000 from roads for on-call engineering services in 2023. All those in favor? Unanimous? Moving right along.
All right, the big one. This is a capital request, or to request additional funding for capital project 9923.08. So for those of you not in the know, that was the culvert cleaning proposal. SVCA entered into a contract with Impact Design under Capital Code 9923.1 for developing a new 10-year capital improvement plan. You all remember that. This plan reviews SVCA's roads and drainage infrastructure. Prior to this project starting, the culverts needed to be cleaned so that they could be evaluated. SVCA entered into a contract with Stremler Gravel under Capital Code 9923.08 for cleaning those culverts. Stremler Gravel, along with SVCA's maintenance department, has completed the cleaning of all SVCA culverts. During this process, 53 secret additional culverts were found that previously weren't mapped in SVCA's records based on the 2014 culvert condition inventory completed by Wilson Engineering. And I'd like to say that it's no criticism of that earlier work. The culverts that were discovered were completely buried. So anyway, when the new capital plan is complete, SVCA will now have over 300 mapped culverts. Per PNW's memo dated 4/20, additional improvements are required at the cleaned culverts to provide positive drainage. And you can take a look at what that means in the attachment. It is recommended that a change order be issued to Stremler Gravel to allow them to continue their work. SVCA's 2023 budget included the following items. $85,000 for fast response for unforeseen drainage issues. $106,205 for the replacement of culvert 432. This project is on hold until the new 10-year capital plan is completed. The above two line items total $191,205, leaving a balance of $20,395.77. This balance is proposed to come from the $750,000 line item for road reconstruction and drainage. So to put this in plain English, because it gets super confusing, when we first came and asked for approval of the culvert cleaning project, we noted that we would need to come back and ask for additional funding for the ditching. In those areas where we had to excavate a culvert, there are now giant holes at the inlet and the outlet of the culvert. And many residents who live near or past these situations, these culverts, have called to say, how does that help? Because those holes are filling with water and providing breeding ground for mosquitoes. So in order to keep the water flowing through those culverts, keep the culverts in good condition and working as appropriate in the original design, you need to create the ability for the water to move through that culvert and away. And that's what this ditching will do. Now, if you looked at the pictures that were included with this, you can, and if you read through, you could see that the hydrovac is an expensive item that's in this itemized list. So my first thought was, well, why do we need that hydrovac that's so expensive? They're just digging a ditch. Except that we've discovered that there are utility connections in the ground at levels that we would have to ditch under or around. So in order to avoid having to stop the work, right, the digging work, and get someone to come out and find and identify those utility connections, which is frustrating for everyone and drives up the costs, the hydrovac can be used to safely, shoot the water at and then suck away the dirt so that the utility connection isn't disturbed or broken. It's just surfaced. And then once we know where it is, the ditch is flowing, and we can call the utility to relocate it. Okay, so that's why the hydrovac is there, and that's what's shown in those pictures. And did I get it right, Mike?
I have to say, I saw that in action where they were following the markings because they called before they digged. And when they did call, so they had these markers out, and then they went around and carefully shot little mini trenches with pressure water carefully, and then they were sucking that away, and it looked like somebody had chewed it out of there in certain spots, but they identified the underground for the next guys to come through. Then they easily went through, cleaned it up, and then put down jute matting, and next thing you know, it's looking really good, and the vegetation will grow back into there. So for anybody out there in Sudden Valley, when you see some of that stuff, it looks like some big claws came by and dug out some things. It's like they were specifically looking for the underground, and it works really well. So they pressure washed and evacuated that and identified it for the other guys, because that's what the truck was there at that time. And then the other guys came back with a little track bucket, and they were scooping it out. And now there's a place over at Gate 9 that has been draining now for quite a while, and it's actually going to drain this swamp that's been over there since I've lived there for 10 years. And it was a mosquito thing, and it had to get to a certain level for water even to move around through there. But boy, they nailed it. So they dug it down, and now it looks like that water may almost disappear. And so that's probably going to happen in a lot of places. So anybody out there listening, it's like some of those standing water things can be addressed with that. And at first it looks rough, but then they came back and then they smoothed it all out and removed the debris. And a lot of it's organic matter, because the trees, everything falling in there, and in various soils washing down, but a lot of it's organic stuff that we've pushed off the roads, cars. It's like everything pushes into the ditch, and it piles up. And in some places it filled it up 3, 4, 5 feet deep. And that's what they're going to be addressing. And it really looked good. So if anybody had the time and could see it and then check it again later, you'd be amazed. It's really working.
Yeah. The other thing I'd like to point out that's not in the memo really, is, the memo from PNW, that has a lot more detail and I found it to be very, informative. I pushed back and said, do we have to spend another $200,000? Can't we spread it out? Can't maintenance do this over time? Why do we have to do it all at once? There are economies of scale, but primarily the difference is that we're sort of reconstructing the ditches. We're not maintaining them, basically. And that this work, by investing now, first of all, residents will get the best result because we'll have the best drainage, we'll be in the best position for an extreme weather event, which we all know are all too frequent. And we also will put the ditches back to a place where they can be maintained safely with our smaller equipment, and our regular crew and our regular maintenance. So, I think it's a wise investment.
I
It is a
would
significant
like
one.
to add something of what I've seen. And I always walk around, I'm always interested in how things are draining and the condition of the road beds. And you've heard AJ mention that quite a bit and roads delaminating. And it's like, but I have seen places where I could tell it was going to be a problem because the water was up so high next to the roadside and allows it to migrate underneath the road. And then so as it just slowly starts working and keeping that wet underneath the road, that's how we can lose some roads and lose stuff over culverts or freeze thaw cycles, and we crack up some roads. And by dropping that water back down, and then it'll allow the roads to stay drier underneath, which will preserve our road beds. And so it's a hell of an investment right now, but for the long haul, we'll save a ton and protect those roads, because that's exactly what can happen is that water sitting up there and slush out underneath the road bed. And then also there was another thing that I noticed in my neighborhood. We had actually cleared some culvert things and everybody else now, the staff, it's like we were all clearing some stuff, and there was a hill above my neighbor's house that the water wasn't running down the culvert. It was staying up high, and then it was washing down the hill, and so all this water is migrating around his house. And that's can happen. It's like, so that water needs a chance to head down. It doesn't go fast, but it does get out of there. And it matters to people's homes too, in all these places, because that drainage is not done right. You end up having more water around your house, in your yard. And it's too slushy. You don't need that. It's like, so the drainage system is amazing. We just got to clean it out, and it's going to cost a little bit.
So sorry for all that, improvisational information, but it was a big expense and I thought it warranted, a little more detail. Anyhow, there are two requests. The first is that $211,000 or $211,600.77 from roads allocated to increase the project funds of the capital code 9923.08. And also, we request that a contract change order allow an increase to Stremler Gravel's contract under capital code 9923.08 in the amount of $184,264.34.
Okay, so the question would be, the first motion on table is for the Sudden Valley Sudden Valley Community Association Board of Directors to approve the allocation of $600 and $211,600.77 from roads for capital code 9923.08. So is there discussion?
Well,
Oh, second first. We get a second.
Second.
Linda.
Question. In our original plan, when we paid for this, and I just want to be clear that this was included in that, is there was also an amount allotted to Sudden Valley maintenance for the work. Is that increase? I assume if Stremler did more, there's a chance that our staff did too. Is that all inclusive of that original amount? That's all I have.
This is an increase for these additional like this additional work. So you're not going to be doing any of this work, correct?
The culvert cleaning is basically done and now it's moving into the ditching phase. And we worked in conjunction at the culvert cleaning project.
Okay, I'm just, go ahead.
And I would like to note that Stenwell's done an outstanding job.
Oh, definitely.
And I'm around a lot of pipe cleaning and those types of projects and it was very impressed with them of taking the extra mile when they didn't just drive up, say, oh, I can't find it. That's how those extra pipes got found because they took the time and we took the time. to
Page
look.
80 is my ditch out front now. My hole in my ditch, but it really looks good.
So I just, if you don't mind, I want to make just one comment too, is, the reason that it references, because I know, it talks about, you know, like where this money is coming from this year that we maybe budgeted, because I know last time, Linda, you kind of questioned like, well, does that mean we're not going to pay for something? The reason that I've asked them to do that is so it shows that we're not really impacting, our roads budget this year of what we were planning to spend. So we're not really going to, you know, this isn't a plan to deplete the reserves by this additional amount. That we're showing that we had no intention of spending this money, and that and where this money's going to come from this year. And then, but we'll still, the other thing is that the culverts, whatever it was, culvert 432, that was on the plan that came from Wilson, and we fully expect that when we get the new roads and culvert plan, that it'll be completely different.
It couldn't have been done this year anyway, because the permitting and the design was supposed to be done last year. The question I do have though, is the amounts that I have don't match with the amounts that are in here. And I'm looking at this thing that we got with our budget. You know, it's like this 106,205 is only a $78,270. And the rapid response is at 89,088. I'm just saying, I don't know where some of these numbers are coming from. And I'm just looking back to our budget stuff we got with our packets when we voted on stuff.
Well, basically, for 2023, the fast response, we have 85,000 budgeted. And then when it comes to culvert 432, so we have 31,205 budgeted for the design, which obviously, you know, wasn't done in 2022. Then we have $75,000 budget for the construction and this year for 2023. So that basically comes out to 191,205, which gets it pretty well in the ballpark of that 211 additional change order.
So are we, I guess a question, because we used to always approve the rapid response included with that on-call. Well, is it conceivable then that that's something that 85,000 is something we're never going to have to touch?
Well, for this year, I mean, these are the drainage issues. And
This is it.
this is it. Like there's not much that we can do. I mean, there might be emergencies like water might damage something, but this is restoring the system to its full functionality, which is kind of cool, actually.
I know it's just that we've all, prior to this, we have always had the on-call engineering and also that emergency. We could still have some real interesting weather this fall.
So it may have to come from UDR if that happens.
Well, Actually,
I'm just saying, when we do away with something like that, that's of concern to me. I understand about the culvert. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever.
yeah, like for example, let's just say that there is some flooding, you know, this year. And then, you know, so part of the question that I talked about is, you know, we take the 85,000 from the fast response for 2023 in combination with the culvert 432 stuff, which came out to that 191,205. And then, so then the next question is, well, what if there's some flooding this year that we might have needed that 85,000 for fast response? Well, there's another kind of situation in 2024 where you have culvert 189, 409, and culvert 33. So these three culverts, it's another situation to where there's absolutely no we're in no rush to do any of those. And so that would be close to another $127,000 so that it's actually 126,880, but anyways, that's earmarked for 2024 for those 3 culverts. But if there's no real need to do those anytime soon, that is money that we could utilize conceivably for a fast response situation if it were to occur, at the end of this year, in 2023. Like if some flooding really hit in November, October, December.
Just trying to look ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we probably won't do any culverts next year. That'll all be design and permitting once we get that in. So I just have one other quick question. Mike, can you kind of explain the difference between the hydrovac machine that Strimler is using, or the hydrovac truck, whatever it's called, and versus what the SVCA owns?
Yeah, so Strimler has an actual hydrovac truck with a jetter. Our little vac trailer just has vacuum and like a little pressure washer, one per se. So with their truck, they're able to clean bigger culverts and actually move big, heavy rocks and material, where our little trailer just doesn't have that capacity.
And they also have a huge capacity for water and hauling
Yeah.
that they don't have to run back and forth to.
Yeah, they carry 2,000 gallons of water. And those are 10-yard hoppers. And the pressure is about 2,000 PSI that they clean with. So it's just a huge scale and little scale.
They blew out a line in front of my house trying to open up the culvert. And so I've had a lot of, they've been at my house a lot. And it's nice, the work's done. The thing I have a question for, and I think it'll be something that Sudden Valley might do, is they've dug that out real nice, but there's still a lip between that culvert and the road so that water still runs on the road rather than down into the ditch. Is it just something I need to tell somebody about and you guys will come and look at it?
Yeah, you can certainly let us know so that we can look at it. And that's in several areas in Sudden Valley, and a lot of it's from all the sand that's been put on the roads over the years. And so you have those lips built up on the shoulders and it just kind of builds. So at some point, we're going to need to address.
If
those
you
areas.
go up on Wisteria particularly, you can see where they've been up there, but you can also see where they've tried to kind of change the edges, but that the water is still coming down onto people's driveways, then swirling up over the road. You can see when you come to the stop sign in the bottom of Wisteria there, where it's still washing.
So some of that is, it's got a lot of cross connections under the road, and the road is also sunk in those areas. Some of that's been because there's not been anybody watching the utility companies or these new builds and stuff. When they go in, they don't lay the road back down correctly. And so it allows it to kind of put those sinks in there. Cause I actually asked that question and so it's directing it in that, at least at the bottom there, is because of those indentions in the road. And that's, I think, part of what Impact will look at is the
Yes,
shouldering.
we'll be
and
looking at
everything.
that, at the road conditions. And another thing we've done is try to be more proactive on those utility cuts and make sure they're put back properly. With 4-inch asphalt and sealed edges, and so that they don't settle like that. If the right material underneath them.
Thank you.
And we asked people to call the office if they had standing water or other water issues. And many residents have been doing that, and I'm just forwarding them all to Mike, who files them away, and then they'll get, they're noted, they're not lost, and then they'll be addressed over time.
Is there any other discussion? So we're still on the first part of that. The question is, the first motion on the table is for the SVCA Board of Directors to approve the allocation of $211,600.77 from roads for capital code 9923.08. Those in favor? Unanimous.
Brian, did you vote for that?
Ryan is not picked. He's turned off his video. I can't see him.
Brian went to bed.
Okay. The second motion is for the Sudden Valley Community Association Board of Directors to authorize a contract change order addition to Stremler Gravel's existing contract under Capital Code 9923.08 in the amount of $184,264.34.
Second.
Discussion? Or any discussion on that? We kind of covered part of that pretty well. So if you're sure, if everybody's, then we can call for the vote. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Passes unanimously.
You.
And over to Joanne.
Okay, a fun one for our last one. This is an approval request for changes to be made to the 2023 pool fees. As a note, these are the pool use fees for guests of residents and non-residents. Members are not charged to use the pool. A comparison of current pool use fees shows that SVCA's proposed fees are comparable to fees charged by other pools in the area. This increase will not affect members since members are not charged to use the pools. Use fees within Whatcom County for public access pools are summarized in a table there. It can be confusing because everyone has different like passes. You know, some of them are a month, some of them are 3 months, a year, 10 visits. It gets really confusing. But when you break it down and you go through and do the math and say, well, if I need to take my family swimming, you know, what does it cost one day at Arnie Hanna, one day at the Y? We're still, even with the proposed increases, we're still a good deal. Okay, so we're not pricing ourselves out of the market. But the proposed fees are an increase of about 15%. I did round the amounts to the nearest 25 cents because it seemed silly to charge somebody $5.63 to swim. But anyway, that's how I arrived at those numbers. And so my request is that the board approve the proposed pool use fee schedule.
Discussion?
Yeah.
Oh, we gotta put a motion on.
Yeah.
We're almost done. Oh. I'm gonna read this. This is critical. The last item of business. So I move that the Sudden Valley Community Association Board of Directors approve the proposed 2023 pool use fee schedule.
Second.
Discussion? Sonia.
Yeah, so this fee schedule, actually says that members, what does it say? Members are their fees are included in the special assessment. There will not be a special assessment when pools, open. They're included in the regular, annual dues or monthly dues payment.
That's true.
Maybe just make that change for the proposed fees then for,
Yeah.
you can leave it on the current fees, but then the proposed fees.
Yeah.
It just says included in annual dues assessment.
Got it.
Any other questions or? Well, all right, and it's time to call for the question. The motion on the table is that Sudden Valley Community Association Board of Directors approve the proposed 2023 pool use fees schedule. Those in favor? Passes unanimous.
Are you for it? Yeah, you pop back up.
I'm gonna pretend I actually saw you before I said that. Okay, Well, that's it. It's like, actually, there's a motion on the table to adjourn.
At 9:12, I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
We're
Mike.
adjourned. 9:12.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mike. Good to see you down here. Appreciate that.